Hi friends, Grace from the Working Hard podcast here. When you're stretching every dollar, a little goes a long way, and Walmart Business is here to help. They make it easy to order what you need, from tech and cleaning supplies to everyday essentials, all at low prices and with helpful tools like spend tracking and tax-exempt purchasing for eligible organizations. Because when your operations are smooth, your impact can be bigger. Visit business.walmart.com to get started.
If your eyes are the windows to your soul and your glasses are the windows to your eyes, then it's pretty important to find your perfect frames. That's why at Warby Parker, we've made shopping for eyewear as easy and fun as can be. Peruse endless styles in our stores or use our app to virtually try on frames and get personalized recommendations. To find your next favorite pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to locate your nearest Warby Parker store, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
Traffic may be locked, but savings isn't. Unlock the savings at Boost Mobile with unlimited wireless for just $25 a month. Forever. No contracts, no hikes, and you keep your phone. Unlock the savings at boostmobile.com/unlock. $25 forever requires customers to remain active on Boost Unlimited Wireless Plan. For full offer details, visit boostmobile.com.
Welcome to the Great Coaches Podcast.
To me, being perfect is not about that scoreboard out there.
This is a chance of a lifetime.
When you can understand the person, you can then work towards a common goal.
We are all on the same team.
Know your role and do it to the best of your ability.
Focus on the fundamentals. We've gone over time and time again.
Your defense has got to be better.
Leave no doubt tonight.
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
Hello and welcome to the Great Coaches Podcast, where we believe that there is no algorithm for leadership, and so we interview great sports coaches from around the world to try and find ideas to help all of us be better leaders. Our interview today is a posthumous one with Sir Matt Busby. Sir Matt was the head coach, or as they say in soccer, manager of Manchester United from 1945 until 1969. He was the first manager of an English team to win the European Cup, which he did in 1968. As a player, he won the FA Cup with Manchester City, and as a manager, won it twice with Manchester United. He also won the league title on 5 occasions. But as you will hear in this podcast, it's not necessarily the championships that make him a great coach. It's the way he helped Manchester United rebuild after the Second World War, and then the way he and his team responded to the tragic events of 1958, when the team were travelling home from a European Cup match and their plane crashed on the runway. In total, 23 people died, including 8 Manchester United players, while 2 other people were so badly injured they never played again. Matt Busby died in 1994, and in this episode I'm going to create a posthumous discussion with him based on his words, as read by a voice actor. I used 3 books to create this discussion, 2 of which he wrote. The names of those books are in the show notes. This episode was challenging to put together, but it was also fascinating given the state of his beloved Manchester United in the 2024 season. And just before we go to the interview, today's podcast is brought to you by the Macquarie University Business School's MBA program. Designed to empower, challenge and transform, the Macquarie MBA gives you the business skills and knowledge you need to succeed in an evolving global economy. The program bridges the gap between theory and real-world application, bringing together world-leading professors, executives and industry partners to teach you how business can be used for good. I have just started working with the team at Macquarie on some projects and can attest to the quality of the people and material. To find out more, search for Macquarie University Business School's MBA.
You're listening to the Great Coaches Podcast.
Matt was born in Scotland in the mining community of Lanarkshire. And when he came into the world, the doctor told his mother that, quote, a footballer has come into this house today, end quote. His father was killed during the First World War along with 3 of his uncles, and these humble beginnings was something that Matt would often reflect on.
Since I became a professional footballer, it sometimes does me good to think back to the days when living wasn't so easy. It helps to keep my feet on the ground, makes me appreciate all the more my success, and is a constant reminder that the rough times aren't so far removed from the smooth.
Matt would go on to play for Manchester City and leave them after 204 appearances and move to Liverpool. He would play with them until 1939. When the Second World War broke out, he joined the King's Liverpool Regiment.
Although I lost 6 valuable years of my football career, in many ways the army taught me lessons which were to prove beneficial in later years. I was given an insight on the involved technique of handling men. I was imbued with a sense of leadership as a senior NCO. I was given every possible opportunity, much more than as a civilian, to keep fit and well. Life in the army too is a big help in developing one's character.
In 1945, Matt was sounded out to become the coach of Manchester United. He had developed a coaching philosophy that required more control over the team than was traditionally given to coaches in those days. Alignment on this was one of the key components in his job negotiation.
Well, I was anxious to become a manager, but I had to make certain that, like other unfortunates, I didn't join a club prepared to install me as a mere figurehead, ready to tolerate my presence for perhaps a couple of seasons before showing me the door. I wanted a good club. Not necessarily a big First Division outfit, but a club which would give an opportunity to a man willing to work unstintingly for the success of that club. Call it confidence, conceit, arrogance or ignorance, but I was unequivocal about it. At the advanced age of 35, I would accept the managership of Manchester United only if they would let me have it all my own way. As the manager, I would want to manage. I would be the boss. Manchester United in 1945 were on their knees. The Old Trafford ground was a blitzed wreck. The dressing rooms were derelict. There were no facilities for training, no offices for the staff. My faith in the future convinced me that there was a wonderful opportunity for someone to put Manchester United back on the football map. I wanted to be the man to do it.
Matt reached agreement with the club and took charge of Manchester United on the 1st of October 1945. When reflecting on his coaching philosophy back then, this is how he described it.
I didn't set out to build a team. The task ahead was much bigger than that. What I really embarked upon was the building of a system which would produce not one team, but 4 or 5 teams, each occupying a vital rung on a ladder, the summit of which was my first 11, from 15 years old upwards. Team builders and house builders have a lot in common, because the superstructure of a house, which could be likened to a club first 11, may look magnificent for a time, but it will not last unless really hard work has been done on the foundations. In soccer, reserve players are the foundations. Without them, the whole structure is in peril.
The team's motto was described by its captain, Johnny Carey, as, quote, "The ball should never stop. If we were accurate and didn't lose the ball, it was devastating. By pushing the ball around and running into open positions, we made it almost impossible for defenders to pick us up." End quote. It's no surprise that Matt's experience as a player shaped his approach to coaching. But reading back over his words, I'm struck by how contemporary his views on care and player development were.
Perhaps my background had made me a little older than my years, but long before I became established, long before I was captain of Scotland, long before I moved from Manchester City to Liverpool, I vowed that if ever I became a manager, I would respect players as individuals who needed individual treatment and thereby try to inspire respect from them. In my club, regardless of whether they are in the first or the 5th team, they are all individuals and more than just names to me. I spend a lot of time with them in the evenings, talking to them, encouraging them, advising and occasionally criticising. That's essential because once a manager loses contact with his players or treats some better than others, he's inviting trouble. The important thing I decided even when I was a player is to recognise that men anywhere cannot be managed successfully without appreciating the importance of an individual to himself, to recognise that a player, however instinctively or genetically brilliant he is, or however dull he seems at taking things in, is not a machine who can simply be switched on and be expected to turn out the goods automatically. Any footballer signed by a Football League club must have been blessed with the techniques to some degree for him to have got anywhere near the place. To make the most of them and even enhance them, the boss has to switch to his players' various wavelengths and tune into their various problems, whether those problems are in the game or out of it. They can tell you to mind your own business if they like, if it's none of your business. But at least they'll know you've tried.
When describing his role as a coach, Matt said,
"Much as I admire individual, spontaneous, extemporaneous brilliance, the greatest orchestras need a conductor."
As success started to come, Matt was increasingly asked about his leadership and what the role of the coach should be as the game was developing in post-war Europe.
As a player, you're comparatively free of worry. Your big job is a game of soccer, and unless extra time's played, the assignment cannot last longer than 90 minutes. As a manager, you're in charge of everything, which means constant sleepless nights in case any player should collect injuries or lose form or be taken ill and the coach to the stadium. You, the manager, are the man on the spot. If things go well, hey, you're a hero. But if you go the other way, you might spend the rest of your life regretting some decision, some action, some costly mistake. The best footballers don't necessarily make the best managers. It is even closer to the facts to say that great players seldom make successful managers. The technical gifts that make a footballer great have little in common with the gifts that make for managership, and indeed they may constitute actual drawbacks for good managership. The instinctive, prolifically gifted player is apt to take his gifts for granted, and to wonder why his colleagues don't respond to his instincts, or why they do not, indeed, have the same instincts. Since his tricks almost always succeed, he doesn't need to occupy his time wondering why not, and what can he do to improve the trick that didn't work. If he happens to be a great player with also a cannonball shot, which is by no means a necessary corollary to greatness, he can no more inspire less gifted players to send in cannonball shots than can the most learned anatomical or ballistic theorist.
Matt set out to develop a culture that was built on a foundation of pride, prudence, this through necessity given the club's finances, and perhaps surprisingly to me, fun.
Every player who wears the red shirt of Manchester United does so because, above all else, he was keen to get himself a peg in the Old Trafford dressing room. You know, one of my unshakable rules is that no boy comes to Old Trafford unless he's really keen to join my club. If the answer to my question, "Do you want to become a Manchester United player?" should be lukewarm, then I cross that player off. We have built up a priceless asset, and it runs right through the club from top to bottom of pride in United. And unless a new player is 100% for United, he'll never do for me. That is the spirit essential for the winning of matches. And I have come to expect my teams to win their matches. Most footballers, like most joiners, doctors, cab drivers and comedians, have to be happy to do their jobs properly, or at least they do a better job if they're not unhappy. Players who can get a laugh out of their football and at the same time contribute maximum effort will always be an asset to a club. And despite a dedicated concentration on the business of winning matches, my United lads I know treat every match as something to be enjoyed to the full.
At the centre of Sir Matt Busby's focus was the players. Having been a professional himself, he knew how difficult the life could be. but also how rewarding it could be when things went right.
With a football team, all a manager's real assets, his players, do a job that brings them up against opponents in situations of constant tension and physical strain, so that accidents are happening all the time. Seldom, if ever, are all the club's players fully fit, and the great players are as vulnerable as the ordinary player. The greatest of them even more so, because their skill with the ball is utilised so late against an opponent's tackle and by so small a margin of space that an inaccurate but innocent bid for the ball becomes a kick on the ankle for the great one. Skill is utilised so late because the later it operates, the less chance the tackler has to recover in time to tackle again. In other words, the great man puts himself in the greatest danger in order to create the greatest danger to opposition.
Matt was famous for being one of the first managers who kitted out as a player for practice. He was not the remote figure dressed in a suit and on the sidelines like many of his peers, but rather in the action, teaching through examples. In fact, he became known as the first tracksuit manager. Here is a description of Matt from an administrator at Manchester United, and the man who connected the club with Matt in the first place. His name is Lewis Rocker. Quote, "The United manager is also a psychologist. He has imparted his football knowledge to the players by playing with them. He goes onto the field in practice games at Old Trafford on Tuesday mornings. You will, if you are lucky enough to be watching, hear his words of advice to one and all." End quote. Here is Matt talking about his practice routines.
I was one of the first tracksuit managers, if not the first, because that's where you get to know your fellows best at work. There you find out about those who need a touch of the whip or soft talk or a kick in the rump, those who just don't know when to stop work, those who need encouraging or curbing. Even the most enthusiastic devotee among them, the footballer who is normally so fond of training that he gives an impression he can't be given too much of it, must occasionally be bored to the back teeth with the constant repetitious physical effort, however varied the modern top-class coach and trainer try to make the work. I don't have to be reminded that amateur athletes train daily, voluntarily and without reward, up to 100 miles a week. But this, I feel, is a self-challenge, a determination at least to begin with, to beat their previous best. In other words, beating themselves being the first course in trying to beat the opposition.
Hi friends, Grace from the Working Hard podcast here. When you're stretching every dollar, a little goes a long way, and Walmart Business is here to help. They make it easy to order what you need from tech and cleaning supplies to everyday essentials, all at low prices and with helpful tools like spend tracking and tax-exempt purchasing for eligible organizations. Because when your operations are smooth, your impact can be bigger. Visit business.walmart.com to get started.
Security program on spreadsheets, new regulations piling up, and audit dread? It's time for Vanta. Vanta automates security and compliance, brings evidence into one place, and cuts audit prep by 82%. Less manual work, clearer visibility, faster deals, zero chaos. Call it compliance or call it compliance. Get it? Join the 15,000 companies using Vanta to prove trust. Go to vanta.com/com.
So Matt was able to build teams that became so well versed in the patterns of play they practiced that they became known as thought readers. But again, and I think this was part of his genius, he was able to find room for the creativity of the gifted generational players he had in the team. This is how he explained the needs of a team.
What are the basic needs? They are the needs of every club. From the back, the need is for a goalkeeper who's in charge of the penalty area, who has an understanding with his colleagues by thought reading as well as shouting. Full backs require strength, pace and need to be quick on the turn for recovery purposes. All back men need to have command in the air, have to be able to read situations before they arise. A sweeper has to be the smeller of danger to come. The middlemen, the creators, are the ones who really shape the game, the ones for whom most blessings flow. They have to have vision, imagination to hold the ball or pass it if passing it is on, and the ability to beat a man. Forwards must obviously have great skills because they're facing the wrong way half the time when the ball comes to them. They have to be able to take a bump and bounce back. They too have to anticipate situations and exploit them. A bonus, if a team contains all these assets, is the genius in the ranks. United have had a few of these. These fellows are by nature nonconformists, inasmuch as they do things that the others can't do. I've always believed that the brilliant individualist must be given scope for his nonconformism, as long as it's not at the expense of the end product, the scoring of goals. Because the constant surprises inflicted on the opposition by these gifted players become confidence-sapping for them, making them disbelieve in themselves. For various reasons among United forwards, I would put Jack Rowley, Billy Whelan, Bob Charlton, Dennis Law and George Best at least in this category. Great players are individuals. That's what makes them great players. They don't conform readily. They do the unexpected. That is also why they are great players. If they did what was expected, they'd be ordinary players. It so happens that great players are also great passers of the ball. So the individual genius aids teamwork because he gives ordinary players a ball that makes life easier for them. But coaching changed things. Coaching is for ordinary players. It makes them better players. And that maybe is why most great coaches were themselves ordinary players. They know how to improve an ordinary player's game because they had scope for improving themselves when they were players and did so improve themselves. Great players don't understand why lesser men can't do great things.
In reading about Matt, I'm struck by how good he seems to be at communication, particularly given the context of the time when talking about feelings was not as common as it is today. There are descriptions of him remembering people's names and possessing the ability to concentrate on someone so intently that they felt like they were the only person in the room. And underpinning all of this was a quiet, calming confidence.
Everybody is important to himself. The director, the manager, the secretary, the players, the trainers, the coaches, the groundsmen, the tea ladies, the lot. Their importance must not only be appreciated, it must be seen to be appreciated. I had decided years before that bullying could at best bring only instant obedience and never lasting results. I had decided that loud noises were not my forte, and that strength was not measured in decibels. My method was to appeal to an offender's conscience about the club and about me, and then a quiet but uncompromising insistence that I wouldn't put up with any nonsense from any player in the club, whatever his name was. A man can be made to squirm without bawling at him. If he can't, he's not worth keeping. I may have been on the gentle side, but believe it or not, I have never been soft with any player. But whatever the transgression, serious, not so serious, or merely frivolous, I don't subscribe to the idea of public flogging. If a manager doesn't make it his business to know every little thing that's going on, how can he expect to complain when some little thing goes wrong? Thus there has to be a manager-chairman-board relationship, a manager-secretary relationship, a manager-player relationship, a manager-everybody relationship. He can take information from every department and advice, and since he is the only person who has a grasp of the lot, only he can make decisions. He must know what's going on all around him. The others are vital in their part, their own part.
So Matt Busby used his communication skills to great effect with the club's stakeholders, particularly the Manchester United club directors. And the strength of this relationship meant that the political distractions that can derail teams and organisations was minimised.
Diplomacy and a dash of psychology should be part of every well-equipped manager's makeup. I've never joined in the popular game of belittling football club directors simply because they are football club directors. I've always said look at the top when analysing clubs who have lasting success, and there you'll find the original cause of the happy effect. There was never a club with an unhappy chairman and an unhappy board that achieved lasting success at anything. More particularly, the chairman and the board are there to back the man they themselves have backed as a likely winner. And I'm a firm believer still in my old philosophy that if the position at the top is not right, it will not be right anywhere, and I don't care where it applies. If that backing is not wholehearted and unanimous, or if there are opposing factions on a board, no matter what success is achieved in the short term, lasting success will not follow.
His focus on stakeholders, though, also extended to the fans.
One thing I was determined to do, it was to keep the name of Manchester United on people's lips. We'd always to look as if we were doing something. Having been the greatest, we wouldn't settle for anything less, and our supporters who had roared us on to Wembley immediately after the crash deserved nothing less. The matter of feeling important is as important to a supporter as to a player. Supporters claim proprietorship of a team. We played a blinder, or we had a stinker. And why not? It's their money we're spending. If we're a club and a club is people, the supporters are our sponsors. They pay for the privilege of claiming success if the team wins, and for playing hell if it loses. All I would ever ask for is their patience when there seems to be inaction and action is needed, and their understanding that it's not always possible from the outside to see what is really a good reason from the inside.
From 1945 until 1958, Matt's Manchester United won 3 league titles and 1 FA Cup. His philosophy of focusing on youth was working, and his team was known as the Busby Babes because of their relatively young age and the enthusiasm and attacking flair they played with. Then, after a European Cup game against Red Star Belgrade in February 1958, the team's plane crashed on the runway on the way home at Munich Airport. 8 of the team's players died, and Matt was seriously injured, spending 2 months in hospital.
The fact which must be faced, though, is the loss of many of my greatest footballers and my finest friends. Although I do face it, I still wonder at times if the whole sorrowful business did really happen. I'm quite serious when I say that on many a morning I wake up believing that all those who perished are still alive. Then follows the realisation that this can't be. It would be unreasonable if I didn't pay tribute to the tremendous number of people who rallied to Manchester United's cause after the Munich disaster. People came to Old Trafford who had not been there before. Their desire was to help to show that behind us in our efforts to live again were the hearts of people who had never even seen a game of football. I don't feel I'm being overdramatic if I compare the rallying call of people determined not to let us go under with the rallying call of people whose way of life is threatened by an enemy at war. People cried in the streets, have been told so by many who saw them. They flocked to our aid, they willed us through. They came and they stayed.
Matt returned to Manchester United to the manager role for the 1959 season and led the process of rebuilding the team and the club. This involved integrating the players who had survived with new ones. His team would eventually go on to win the FA Cup in 1963, the league titles in 1965 and 1967, and then the ultimate prize of the European Cup in 1968. The last was the third great team he had put together. The fact that Manchester United were able to rebuild so quickly is testament to the character of the club and the philosophy that Matt had put in place. But scratch below the surface, and what emerges is a club that places itself above the individual, and one that isn't afraid to learn and evolve.
I'm grateful to have been blessed with the energy to survive the strain of creating 3. It couldn't have been done merely by gaining respect. To respect must be added affection, mutual affection. That's what we at Manchester United had. I've always believed that Manchester United Football Club is more important than any player or manager, and if that at times seems hard on the individual, It's unfortunate, but necessary. I believe I've influenced people in my long life in football. I don't suggest that any player or manager has consciously copied me. Experience means not only lessons learned from mistakes, it also means a collection of worthwhile information quite subconsciously pigeonholed in the brain box from talking to or watching others with something to say or to show. So, although I've not copied any man, my football thinking has been influenced by close contact with great men from my boyhood.
So Matt Busby's legacy is one of the greatest ever created by a coach. His son, Sandy, said it best, quote, "My dad was the foundation and Sir Alex was the resurrection," end quote. I believe that Matt would have also been conscious of his legacy and could have easily made the decision to rest on it after the Munich tragedy. But he was selfless enough to know that the club needed him in a way that went beyond just winning tournaments.
How could I leave the place? How could I walk out of a club I'd built on the ashes of war and rebuilt after the mass tragedy of Munich? A club I love dearly, a club I've nearly killed myself for. And would it not be a wicked waste, I ask in all humility, to go home, shut myself in and muse on all the experience I've gained and let it rot there with me? You know, football has given me a wonderful life. It would not be true to say that if I could go back in time, I would have it all happen again. The Munich crash caused too many hearts to be broken for that. But the warmth of people towards me wherever I have travelled inside and outside football has been constant proof to me of the game's potential in fostering international friendship.
In 1969, after a defeat at Leeds, Matt announced he would step aside. At the time he said, quote, "United is no longer a football club, it's an institution," end quote. He took on an administration role with the club and stayed involved in one way or another until his death at the age of 84 on the 20th of January 1994. At the funeral, the present Manchester United coach and one of the all-time greats, Sir Alex Ferguson, said this: "Matt Busby wasn't just a manager, he was a father figure to all of us. He built this club from the ashes of Munich and he created a legacy that will last forever. He showed us that anything is possible if you have the belief and the determination." Hi everyone, Paul here, and I hope you enjoyed our podcast on Sir Matt Busby. There were so many interesting points that he raises in his books that are relevant, I think, for the team today. The use and importance of fun when it comes to balancing out the grind of training, and the importance of having strong stakeholder relationships as a coach, and those include with the board and with the fans and with the players and with the players' families. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And just before we go, if you have any feedback, then please let us know. Just like Ben Cross, who after listening to our episode with Tim Sheens said, "Great listen. I listened to it twice back to back. Great insights and knowledge of rugby league and people." Thanks, Ben. The interaction with the people around the world who listen gives us great energy and keeps us going. And so if you have any feedback or perhaps know someone that we should interview, please let us know. All the details on how to connect with us are in the show notes or on our website, thegreatcoachespodcast.com.
Big news! Boost Mobile is now sending experts nationwide to deliver and set up customers' new phones at home or work.
Wait, we're going on tour?
Not a tour. We're delivering and setting up customers' phones so it's easier to upgrade.
Let's get in the tour bus and hit the road.
No, not a tour bus. It's a regular car we use to deliver and set up customers' phones at home or work.
Are you a groupie on this tour?
We deliver and set up phones. It's not a tour.
Oh, you're definitely a groupie.
Introducing Store to Door. Switch and get a new device with expert setup and delivery wherever you're at.
Delivery available for select devices purchased at boostmobile.com.
Immersing yourself in all things soccer ahead of this summer's World Cup? I'm Alex Abnos, Senior Sports Editor from The Guardian. Whether you're a soccer beginner or you know the game inside and out, we've got you covered. From one of the fastest-growing soccer newsrooms, The Guardian brings you in-depth World Cup coverage that gets into the winners and losers on and off the pitch. Read, watch, and listen as our journalists connect the dots between the games, the cultures, and this political moment. We'll have daily newsletters throughout the tournament, a global perspective, and a squad of Americans, including me, on the ground with the U.S. national team. Plus, if you want to test your soccer knowledge, try On the Ball. It's a game in the Guardian app, and it's really, really fun. And if you're into stuff like this...
Well, I think the problem is if you give footballers an inch, they will take a mile.
Is it too much when it's this close?
It's a bit much. It's a bit too real. Maybe you could just talk with a slight delay.
Be sure to listen to our Football Weekly podcast for on-the-move expert analysis. The Guardian, bringing you the whole picture on soccer. Search Guardian Soccer for more.
Shipping, billing, admin, payroll, marketing. You're managing all the things. So why waste time sending important documents the old-fashioned way? Mail and ship when you want, how you want with Stamps.com. Print postage on demand 24/7 and schedule pickups from your office or home. Save up to 90% with automated rate shopping. That's why over 1 million small businesses trust Stamps.com. Go to Stamps.com and use code PODCAST to try Stamps.com risk-free for 60 days.